In the headlines, political deadlock continues in Korea, and it's putting the main opposition party's leadership in a tough position as it rules out the possibility of renegotiating a bill that bereaved families of the April ferry disaster are rejecting. U.S. President Barack Obama vows no let-up in air attacks on Iraqi militants, even after the beheading of a U.S. journalist. And a tough road ahead for the Korean economy. A slew of projections point to slow growth for many major economies on top of geopolitical tensions that could potentially hurt the global economy.
Thanks for tuning in to Primetime News, live from Seoul. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Se-ri. Glad to see you tonight. The prolonged political standoff over a bill to approve a parliamentary probe into the April ferry disaster continues, and this time the pressure is coming on strong from the bereaved families of the victims who say the current proposal lacks real power.
And that's putting the current interim chief of the main opposition party in a sticky situation as she finds her own party splintering over the issue. Our Myung-kil tells us more.
The acting chair, Park Young-sun of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, failed to persuade fellow party members and relatives of the Sewol-ho ferry victims to accept the compromised ferry bill that was produced with the ruling Saenuri Party on Tuesday. The interim chief has not been able to win the backing of her own party, and some lawmakers have even distanced themselves after news broke that the families were dissatisfied with the agreement. The ruling party has kept a firm stance, saying further negotiations are out of question, and the opposition party's hardliners have sided with the victims' families who oppose the bill, saying it lacks investigative and prosecutorial powers. The interim chief Park, also in line with the ruling party, made it clear on Wednesday that renegotiations are not an option. Lawmakers from within the main opposition are divided on how to resolve the current crisis. The acting chair faces the prospect of intense backlash from within her own party, and it is feared that the opposition could be hurt more if the party fails to win any concessions from both the ruling party and family members of the ferry accident victims. Left with no choice, interim leader Park has asked President Park Geun-hye to meet one of the victims' fathers, who has been staging a hunger strike for over a month to help break the deadlock. However, the presidential office has distanced itself from the bill, saying the special law on the Sewol-ho ferry incident is a matter that needs bipartisan agreement within parliament and is not an issue President Park can help resolve. Myung-kil, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye has emphasized the need for the allies of South Korea and the U.S. to prepare for any type of a security threat or a natural disaster. This during her visit today to a site of the ongoing Seoul-Washington joint military exercise. Some 80,000 South Korean and U.S. troops are participating in this year's Ulchi Freedom Guardian drills. The South says they are strictly defensive in nature, while North Korea considers it a war game. She also visited the Capital Defense Command today in Seoul, a first for a South Korean president in 23 years. The United States called for extreme interoperability with South Korea in the air defense system. Speaking at a press conference at Korea's Osan Air Base, U.S. Deputy Defense Secretary Robert Work said the U.S. would like the Korean air and missile defense to be strong and independent, stressing what they want is interoperability. His comments seem to wipe out the speculation that the U.S. has been pressuring South Korea to join its THAAD missile defense system.
The U.S. Treasury's point man on North Korea sanctions is currently in Seoul for talks with senior diplomats of South Korea. Officials say David Cohen and Seoul's top nuclear envoy Hwang Jung-kook and Lee Kyung-soo, the deputy minister for political affairs, reviewed the current status of economic sanctions against Pyongyang by the international community and discussed ways to work with countries like China on the issue. Cohen is also said to have requested Seoul's cooperation in sanctions against Russia, citing the Ukraine crisis and the recent downing of a Malaysian passenger jet. Well, warning signs ahead. Market indicators coming out from different parts of the world seem to be pointing to a global economic downturn. Add to that increasing apprehension from geopolitical concerns in a variety of hotspots. As our Song Ji-sun tells us, that creates a recipe for a difficult outlook ahead for Korea's export-driven economy.
Latest reports by the Korean government and economic research institutes reveal that most of the world's largest economies are showing significant downside risks that could drag on Korean and emerging economies as well. The Eurozone, which accounts for 17% of the global economy, failed to grow at all in the second quarter from the first quarter. The gain in consumer prices in the Eurozone also marked the lowest level in nearly 5 years, at a mere 0.4%. Both indicators show a typical double-dip phenomenon, meaning the European economy showed weak signs of recovery, then fell back to a slump. Japan's stagnant economy is expected to remain in the doldrums for another few years, with exports not rebounding enough to bolster its economy and domestic spending continuing to shrink. Japan's economy contracted 6.8% in real terms in the second quarter, the lowest level seen since the devastating earthquake and tsunami 3 years ago. Citing officials, Bloomberg reported that Japan's central bank could slash its 2014 growth outlook to less than 1%, with many private economists predicting growth rate of less than 0.5%. The Japanese central bank has already revised down its growth forecast for this year 3 times. The U.S. is the only bright spot, with its GDP logging a 4% growth in the second quarter. But its momentum can largely be affected by the slowing demand from the Eurozone and a widely expected decision by the U.S. Federal Reserve to raise its benchmark interest rate in the coming month. Crises in Ukraine, Iraq, and Gaza also have the potential to derail the global economic recovery. That could spell a tough road ahead for the Korean economy, which relies heavily on exports. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
If you haven't heard about this ice bucket challenge, it means you haven't been online enough. Videos of celebrities and even world leaders tipping ice-cold water over themselves are going viral online.
And the challenge has made its way here to Korea. Here's our Kwon So-wa with more.
Charity can be so much fun. The Ice Bucket Challenge is going viral around the world. All you have to do is dump a bucket of ice water over your head or let others do it for you within 24 hours after being nominated, or donate $100 to the ALS Association. The association helps people suffering from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease. Once you have been nominated and drenched yourself, it's your turn to choose 3 other people. And it's the more fun when the most well-known people in the world take the challenge.
To you all who challenged me, I do not think it's presidential for me to be splashed with ice water, so I'm simply going to write you a check.
Or not.
Yesterday was Bill's birthday, and my gift to Bill is a bucket of cold water.
Now I nominate Ellen, Barack Obama.
The internet is full of clips of people like Tom Cruise, Lady Gaga, and others not only showing their down-to-earth side, but tipping ice-cold water over themselves and donating to a great cause. The challenge has also made its way to Korea. Actor Cho In-sung grabbed the headlines when he nominated a baseball player of the same name. Former pro basketball player Park Seung-il, who has been battling with Lou Gehrig's disease, took the challenge in his own way with snow spray, which touched many people. Although there is some criticism that the challenge makes light of such a serious illness, it has fulfilled its main purpose of raising awareness and tens of millions of dollars. According to the ALS Association, donations have rocketed to $31.5 million in less than a month, compared to the under $2 million raised over the same period last year. Kwon So-wa, Arirang News.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it.
some of them really went bad.
Yeah, they're hurting themselves. But it's a good cause. I'm glad they're raising a lot of money and awareness for ALS, but now it just looks like people are more focused on themselves rather than the cause. And so I think there are just hints of narcissism in this.
Narcissism?
Yeah.
It's all charity, donation. Well, I guess some people do say that it's a celebrity fad. But I'm up for it. I would go for it, definitely. I think it shows the power of social media nowadays, and it's very efficient to raise that kind of money.
Very true, very true. So who would you nominate?
Maybe I shouldn't say this on air, but Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I don't know. That would be fun.
Okay, all right, interesting. You get one more. You're supposed to nominate 2 people, but only
really?
if you really do it, though.
Oh, if I actually get the ice over. Adam Levine from Maroon 5. I just have to say it on air.
All right. Well, I'm not sure Kim Jong-un would do it, but I'm sure Psy would. So that might be someone to look forward to. All right. Well, we'll be right back.
Curry's comments came in response to
your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang Sean Lim and Kang Che-ri from the heart of Seoul.
Begins now.
Primetime news, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Mathematics can be a scary subject for some people, including myself, actually. It was once considered a reserve of the academic world, but Korean researchers are trying to let the future generations know that DeMatha theorems are also being applied in everyday gadgets and devices. Our Kim Jian tells us more.
The application of math theorems provides an important foundation for the advancement of modern technology. 3D printers, one of the most promising inventions of the 21st century, are based on a calculus theory known as Fubini's theorem. Introduced by Guido Fubini in the early 20th century, it states that in order to materialize an object with n-level dimensions, one can do so by piling up the matter of n-1 dimensions.
If it wasn't for Fubini's theorem, it would not have been possible to intricately pile layer upon layer to produce a three-dimensional object. The rudimentary alternative is to take a large object and sharpen it, but this method cannot produce the sophisticated designs like those made by 3D printers.
Due to its growing importance, Korea has increasingly tried to find ways to nourish local mathematicians, and has been making significant progress in the field over the past 30 years. Korea ranked first in the International Mathematical Olympiads in 2012 and has maintained a top 7 ranking since. A number of math dissertations from Korea have been published in academic journals overseas, putting it at 11th in the world. However, Park Kyung-ju, professor at Pohang University of Science and Technology, says there's still a long way to go in terms of promoting the quality of research. He's emphasizing the need to create a conducive environment for local mathematicians.
So they tend to do research whose results are kind of predictable, or they know for sure that they can solve. Instead of actually challenging the problems that can actually make impacts. The problem is the whole research infrastructure, including grants opportunities, promotes that mindset.
The winners of this year's Fields Medals, which are among the most prestigious awards in mathematics, underscore the importance of quality education in nurturing young mathematicians so that they can experience and appreciate the beauty of the subject and stay the course. Kim Jian, Arirang News.
Language and cultural barriers are just a couple of factors that make some Asians hesitant to leave their homelands and move to another Asian country for work and perhaps a better life, but that's apparently changing. Our Kim Hyun-bin explains why.
The number of people moving from one Asian country to another has risen dramatically over the last 10 years. According to the UN 2013 International Migration Report, released on Wednesday, roughly 20 million Asians migrated within the continent last year. Many are leaving their homelands in search of work, others because of marriage. As countries in Northeast Asia, like Korea and Japan, suffer from the effect of low birth rates, a labor gap has emerged. It's being filled more and more by cheap labor from South Asia and Southeast Asia. Some 2 million Southeast Asians and South Asians moved to Northeast Asia last year for work, or international marriage last year. That's nearly double the total from 2000. And looking at Vietnam alone, over 17,000 Vietnamese migrated to Korea in 2000. By 2013, the figure has soared to 120,000. While Northeast Asia has seen an influx of immigrants, its numbers pale in comparison to West Asia. Some 13.5 million people migrated from South Asia to the west of the continent last year. They're making the move for similar reasons. Middle Eastern countries may be rich in oil, but they also have relatively small populations, requiring them to look outside their borders for hard labor. That's opened the employment door for people from India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, who have seized the opportunity. The number of Southeast Asians moving to the Middle East for work has also risen, with the number last year falling about 2.8 million. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Israel has stepped up its bombardment of the Gaza Strip, killing at least 20 Palestinians, including 4 children, according to emergency services.
So we turn now to Paul for the latest. So, Paul, this raid comes as the bloody conflict in the territory enters its 45th day. Is there any hope left for a diplomatic solution?
Well, peace talks in Cairo have completely broken down, with a Palestinian delegation ordered to return home, leaving both sides to pick off where they left off before the truce began. Israeli airstrikes have resumed in full force, while Hamas has warned all foreign airlines to halt flights to Tel Aviv as of Thursday, as militants fire hundreds of rockets from Gaza. Our Kim Min-ji has more.
The airstrikes and rocket attacks between Israel and Hamas resumed Wednesday as efforts to come up with an extended ceasefire broke down. The Israeli military said it carried out 92 airstrikes in response to 137 rockets shot into its airspace since the truce talks broke down, which both sides blame on each other. Hamas says an Israeli airstrike on a house in Gaza killed 3 of its leaders, including the wife and infant son of Hamas military commander Mohammed Deif, who survived the attack. In a televised statement, Hamas military wing warned of further rocket attacks on Israel, including its main international airport. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to continue his campaign against Gaza militants with all means and as is needed.
Only a guarantee of the calm and safety of Israeli citizens will bring an end to this operation, and therefore I will continue to operate with firmness and insistence. Operation Protective Edge is not finished, not for a minute. We're talking about a lengthy campaign.
Egypt expressed regret over the end of truce, adding that it will continue to try to secure a long-lasting one. The UN Security Council also voiced concerns over the resumption of fighting, calling on the parties to return to the negotiating table. The conflict, which broke out in early July, has left at least 2,100 people dead. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And staying in the Middle East, the video of the brutal killing of American journalist James Foley by Islamic State militants continues to spark international outrage. President Barack Obama has condemned the alleged murder, saying the U.S. will continue the fight against the militant group. Meanwhile, it's been revealed that U.S. Special Forces tried but failed to free American hostages in Syria earlier this year, including Foley. Our Connie Lee reports.
A spokesperson for the Pentagon has revealed that the United States attempted a rescue operation in Syria earlier this summer, not only to free U.S. journalist James Foley, but also other American hostages being held in Syria by Islamic State militants. It was a secret, major rescue operation launched by U.S. Special Forces against the Islamic State. The Pentagon statement on Wednesday said the operation involved air and ground components, but did not succeed because the hostages were not present at the targeted location. This new information came as the U.S. launched a wave of new airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Iraq. On the same day, President Barack Obama, in a televised statement, said the U.S. will be relentless in the fight against the militant group following the brutal murder of Mr. Foley. President Obama, who said he was heartbroken over the incident, said the U.S. will do what's necessary to see that justice is done. He also compared the militant group to cancer whose spread must be stopped. The president's message came less than a day after the militants released a video of the American journalist being beheaded. The Islamic State is believed to be holding several American hostages, including journalist Steven Sotloff. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And turning now to Japan, where national search and rescue operations are in full swing a day after massive landslides was triggered by torrential rains. Thousands of police, military, and rescue personnel are still searching for what remains of the mountain neighborhood as of Thursday evening. At least 39 people are feared dead and 7 missing from the disaster site near the city of Hiroshima. Meanwhile, Seoul's foreign ministry says 2 Koreans had been caught in the landslide.
It has been confirmed that 2 South Koreans who lived nearby were swept away in the landslide, and 1 died and the other was seriously injured.
Japan's weather agency said about a month's worth of rain fell in the 24 hours leading up to Wednesday morning. Officials warn more rain could be on the way, possibly triggering even more landslides. And finally, Russia's food safety watchdog has ordered 4 McDonald's locations in Moscow to shut down in a paramove to push back Western sanctions. The government agency on Thursday said the temporary suspensions were for what they called sanitarian violations. Critics say the Golden Arches have become the latest victim of worsening relations between Russia and the West, with many customers divided over the closures.
The idea that there are political motives should be ruled out immediately, because as far as I know, the whole production cycle is here in Russia, and only the brand is American.
Among the 4 eateries that were closed down was a historic one in Pushkin Square. It opened just before the fall of the Soviet Union, and according to the company, is the busiest McDonald's in the world. And that wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to sports. Now, starting at the Asian Games in Incheon, the event's draw ceremony took place, grouping up countries for various sports. But all eyes were on football, one of the Asiad's top draws. For the men, there were 29 teams filling 8 groups from A to H. South Korea joins Group A with Malaysia, Laos, and Saudi Arabia, which is a fairly easy draw. Now for the ladies, the field's much smaller with 11 teams in 3 groups. South Korea meets India, Thailand, and the Maldives in the women's Group A. And with a great draw for both, their medal chances are looking quite good. And leaving that there, let's go to the KBO. It's the night's big matchup between the Nexen Heroes and NC Dinos. Now Nexen fields Kim Dae-woo for his 2nd start in a row. NC has 9-game winner Lee Jae-hak. Then we go to the first inning. It's Nexen's leadoff man, Seok Chang. He doubles. Then he comes home later on a sac fly. It's a 1-0 ball game. Now they double the lead in the 6th before NC fires back with 3 at the bottom to go ahead. Then Nexen ties it up. But NC's Eric Thames, he unties it with a 2-run jack. And NC goes on to win this one 5-3. And elsewhere in the league, Samsung takes care of Tusan 5-1. And meanwhile, Kia and LG and SK and Hanwha had their games rained out. And sticking with baseball, but going from the men to the boys, Korea's young ball players are showing that they too are amongst the world's best. South Korea, under their official name Asia Pacific, beat Japan's finest youth talent 4-2 thanks to a last inning rally. Now they'll play either Japan or Mexico for a chance to emerge from the international bracket. And the winner there faces the winner of the U.S. bracket in the finals. And finally, we come to golf. The FedEx Cup playoffs have teed off first at the Barclays, with the world's top golfer Rory McIlroy atop the standings. He has 2,582 points, just a hair above 2nd place Jimmy Walker, who has just under 2,500 points. 3rd place Bubba Watson is about 400 back. Now McIlroy and the top 125 golfers will look to make the cuts at 4 playoff events, starting at the Barclays, currently in its 1st round. And that does it for sports. This has been Stephen Che. Your weather update is up next.
Hello everyone, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather update. Well, over the past few days, we've been hit with an unexpected round of heavy showers. Earlier this morning, the first heavy rainfall watch was issued for Sewol, which received over 105 millimeters of precipitation. As a result of the downpours at around 9 a.m., a portion of a reservoir broke down in Gyeongsang-Bukdo province. Also, there were multiple reports of flooding, which led to isolation. The torrential rain is due to cold air from the north colliding with hot and humid air from the south, which has caused instability in the atmosphere. At the moment, showers accompanied by strong winds and thunder continue to stick around in Gangwon-do province. More rainfall is in store nationwide. We're looking at up to 20 millimeters in most parts of the country, which is approximately 1/5 the amounts that fell today. The system should clear up by tomorrow evening, and overall, it will be a cloudy Friday. Other than that, sunnier conditions are in the forecast for the rest of the week. On to Friday's readings. Seoul and Busan reach 29, while Daegu hits 31. As for other regions, Daejeon and Jeju make it to the high 20s, while Dokdo hits 24. That'll do it for now, but I'll be back with more updates after midnight. See you then.
That's Primetime News on this Thursday. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Chiri. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.